Hey friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be answering your nursing assumptions. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Trish. I'm an ICU nurse and I primarily make videos about health, fitness, and nursing. They come out every Monday, so please hit that subscribe button and don't forget to like and comment. It really helps me out. Alright, so let's get started. So I asked you guys recently on social media some nursing assumptions that you might have, and y'all responded with a lot of interesting things and some things that are also really stereotypical. So without further ado, let's check them out. Okay, so I'm pulling up my phone. Okay, so the first assumption is nurses eat their young. Oh, I'm not gonna say I disagree, because I do think that it happens, but I don't think it happens all the time and everywhere. I feel like sometimes nurses get weary of nursing students because of the broad range of them. You never know how they're gonna act in that environment, especially because it's one that they haven't been in. So when I was new and I was like, hi, I'm Trish, I'm new, I feel like people would just brush me off. But I think that was honestly because they were either having a bad day, like it took them forever to get to work, or they hadn't eaten yet, or if I had a question, maybe their patient wasn't as stable and I couldn't tell from looking at them. So I think there was different situations as for why a nurse acts that way, but that could be really impressionable on you when you're new, and it can be kind of scary. On the other hand, there are also just nurses who are kind of grumpy. Maybe they didn't want to be a nurse, and this is kind of what they had to do to get to provide for their family. I know some Filipino nurses like that. Don't come after me because it's true. You know that you know someone who's Filipino who didn't want to be a nurse and wanted to do something different but had to provide for their family. Don't come after me. I think that's one of the more controversial ones where, yes, I do think that nurses can eat their young. Do I think it happens everywhere? No. All right. The next assumption is nurses are mostly female. And then the second part of that was nurses are mostly female and Filipino. And I looked at the Health Force Center at UCSF. It says that less than half of RNs with active licenses who reside in California are non-Hispanic white, and Filipinos represent 17.6%. So there is a good chunk. There is actually a large amount of nurses who are white. I think that makes up the majority. So no, not true. In the way we're moving, I see a lot more male nurses now. I work in an ICU, so I would say half my coworkers are male, and I see a lot of male nurses. It's better working night shift than days. I think this is just a preference thing. If you work more days, then obviously you have more time to do things on your day off. You're not sleeping half the day. But if you're someone who can work night shift, take like a 4-hour nap, get errands done, then go back to sleep or go to work, night shift is cool. I'll work days every once in a while if that means that I'm like on 3 weeks straight of days. I don't really like it where I'll be working like 1 week or 2 days day shift and then I'm like back on nights, because it messes with my night shift schedule. When you're new, maybe you want to work more days because you're learning more stuff, but that's not to say that nothing happens on nights. It just is different. You're not talking to doctors as much, you're not traveling as much as you would probably be in the daytime. It's hard to start in a specialty as a new grad. You should start in med surg as a new grad. I personally started in the ICU. I've been there for 3 years now and I absolutely loved it. I'm so glad that I started in the ICU, and I know that can be really hard because no matter what specialty you're in, you have to have some sort of volunteer work, some sort of hours that show that you know what it's like to be in that environment, because they want to make sure that you know what it's like to be in an ICU environment before you take that jump. Now, they spent all this money training you just for you to leave, so they want to ensure that that doesn't happen. So I think if there's a specialty that you want to do, don't let people tell you otherwise. If you want to start med surg and then move to ICU because you feel like it'll give you a better base for time management, by all means go do that. But if you want to start in a specialty like OR or ICU or emergency room, find the experience to get you where you need to be and go and do it, because you'll find that if it's not something you love and you got told or like people were telling you that you had to go into that field, then you may hate it and it may give you a different perception of nursing down the line. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. Okay, so the next one is it's hard to stay awake on nights. This is true. Bring a lot of coffee. Bring some Bang. I used to not drink energy drinks until I found out about Bang. I'm not a big fizzy drink person, but I absolutely love it. It helps keep me awake more than coffee, and sometimes I have to switch back and forth between the two because it's just too much. No one stays bedside forever. That's not true. Actually, bedside nurses can make a lot of money depending on the place you work. I know nurses who make close to $250,000 working bedside. And yes, you have to put in the time to get there. You can't just do that off the bat. A lot of nurses don't see themselves being bedside forever. They would prefer to go back to school. But honestly, if you like where you are and if you're really comfortable and you make good money, and maybe bedside is a good thing. This one says, nurses don't pee on their shift. True, when you have a busy day, like if you have a lot of patients, there can be times where you don't pee for a while. It's hard to get sleep on night shift. So this one's kind of hit or miss, it depends. I use blackout curtains, so I'll show you. I'm just gonna turn the camera. So these are the curtains I have in my room, and they're, if you can see, they're pretty dark. There is still some light that goes through because they're brown and they're not black. It's been really nice for me to have that because if I shut them, my room gets pretty dark, and then I'll usually just kind of like cover my face slightly, and then it's not as distracting to be sleeping in my room. I personally think that I sleep better on nights. Maybe I'm just more tired, honestly. I can sleep from when I come home, shower at like 8:30 all the way until 4, and that's doable. I actually got this question pretty recently. Someone had asked a good way to talk to doctors. It's not always hard. I think they're just wired really differently is kind of the bottom line for me. You just need to find a different way to get through to them rather than the way you would get through to nurses. Preface things by saying, hey, I just want to let you know that I'm a new grad. And over time you learn that skill where you're trying to paint a picture and you're like, this is what's going on. I need these orders. Let me know what you think. Call me back. And then you document it, because if they don't get back to you, then it's not on you, it's on them. But you know, you got to take care of the patient. Or be like, hey, I don't really understand like what you're asking me, or like why we're giving this medication. You can ask that during rounds and say, okay, do you have a little bit of time to explain? And most of the time they will. Not everyone is very articulate, unfortunately, in explaining. There are some doctors that are amazing and they'll take the time to draw it out for you and explain everything, which is so cool. Just know that that's not everyone, and don't take it personally because they just see a lot of nurses and get some weird orders sometimes. Nurses don't run codes. That's actually not true. I've seen some badass charge nurses run some codes when it's night shift and like you have an intern or a resident. You can tell that it's one of their first few codes and they kind of look like a deer in headlights. My badass charge nurses are like, grab the cash cart, let's go, start compressions. And then they're like, what time is it? Push these drugs. You know, it's so cool and so badass when a nurse has that skill, because it's like, wow, like they know what they're doing. And I think it takes time to get there, because I feel like when you're new, you're like, I'm not supposed to be here, like I don't know what I'm doing, but it's part of that imposter syndrome feeling where you feel less than qualified. I think it just takes a little bit of time to feel very comfortable in your shoes. When you're learning, just take it as that. It's not that you don't know anything, it's just that you haven't applied the things that you've learned. So a little bit different way to look at things rather than you berating yourself and putting yourself down that you don't know anything. Nurses do a lot more than babysit a patient. Yes, because I have relatives in the Philippines that think that that's all I do as a nurse is babysit the patient and do what the doctor says. And I think it's different when you come from different countries where nursing doesn't really have as much autonomy as they may have here. I feel like I can't really blame them because nurses do different things in other countries, but at least over here in the US, you know, you are the patient advocate, you're kind of the gatekeeper and the last resort for this patient. So you really need to be on it and know what's going on, the story about your patient, so that you can safeguard them from anything that happens or any wrong orders that were written. It's up to you to question things that may not look right, even if you're unsure or you sound dumb. I think those are things that you need to be aware of. So last few questions. Nurses don't work that many days in a week. It depends on where you work, but true. Usually nurses work 3 12-hour shifts, or if you work in a surgery center, then maybe you're working 5 8s and then you don't have to work the weekend. So nursing school is easy. No, it was not easy. Nursing school is actually really hard and really stressful. I gained a lot of weight because of nursing school. A lot of my nurse friends can relate that there was parts about nursing school that were really trying. So like any other school, it is also hard. Nurses work long shifts. Yes, we do. We work 12-hour shifts. The last one, nurses need to look to act a certain way. I would actually say no. I know that there are like stereotypes of nurses, like type A nurses, nurse ratchet, sexy nurse. So there are all these stereotypes, but in general, I feel like nurses are very different. Like when you meet them, we all have a common interest, which is nursing, but I feel like everyone's different. The way they look and think and act are all different, which is really, really cool because then you meet these different people. So yeah, those were all the questions I have. I tried to summarize up some, and if you have any more questions that you'd like answered, go ahead and drop them down below. And thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. It helps me out a lot. Alright, see you in the next video. Bye.